Does college football need a salary cap, and what do you do to fix the portal? Grab a drink and join us on this week's Tailgate. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tailgate. I'm Luke.
I'm Michael.
I'm Dennis.
We've got an interesting night or day or whatever you're listening to this planned. Going to talk about some NIL and some portal news and
thoughts. We've clearly got all of the opinions and solutions. So NCAA, you guys are currently in hot water right now, so y'all should be listening up.
Yep, we got the answers. But before
we do that, we need to just get a word from our sponsor, which is Explore Nash. If you are in the Middle Tennessee area or traveling to the Middle Tennessee area and are looking for cool events, restaurants, things like that to do in Nashville, or just want to stay up to date on current events and news and whatnot, just check them out at Explore Nash on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So, should we tackle portal or NIL first? What do you guys think?
I feel like no matter which way you go,
yeah, you're gonna be connected. But I mean, let's why don't we start with NIL?
NIL, okay, let's start with NIL. So the big thing with NIL, obviously, right now NCAA is dealing with a lawsuit from Tennessee and Virginia. Mm-hmm. It's bound to be other states that are going to join in on this. And actually, as we are filming right now, the court has ruled on Tennessee's TRO, their temporary restraining order, and they denied the temporary restraining order, but also came out and said that if this goes to court, that more than likely they're going to win on the merits of the fact that the NCAA does look like they're in violation of the Sherman Act. So
yeah, this was not a we're denying the restraining order because you're wrong.
Yeah,
this was we're denying it because they haven't done anything yet.
Yeah, they just threatened to do something.
However, if they do threaten to do something,
they actually do something. If they follow through on the threat.
If they actually follow through, then
you've got a case.
You've got a case, and you're probably going to win. So it's a very interesting NCAA. Like, I feel like the NCAA is trying to hold on to every bit of power they can right now.
Oh yeah,
and they're kind of doing whatever they can to maintain that power.
I mean, I completely agree with that. I feel like I feel like I've said this talking to you guys like just off the air and everything, where I feel like the moment NIL became a thing, that's when NCAA just kind of signed their death. Like it was like, hey, we're basically gonna be abolished pretty soon.
Well,
right.
Especially since like the NCAA didn't you had at Alston the Alston decision that came in 2021 that basically enabled, it was the Supreme Court decision that basically enabled NIL to become a thing. And basically, they, in a 9-0 decision, which the Supreme Court never does.
No, they don't agree on anything.
They don't ever agree on things.
They're great at that.
They're supreme. They're the best at it. And most of the time, their dissenting opinions are pretty logically thought out. Like it's not like they're just political banter for political banter.
Right.
But sometimes. But this time they all agreed. Like, NIL has to be a thing, that the NCAA is violating the Sherman Act, that basically enables these kids to just have compensation. Because what people don't understand is that the NCAA was blocking these kids from even just having summertime jobs.
Right.
Like, it was weird.
It was the basics of things. Like, I remember talking to my dad and him saying, hey, when I was in school, I had a part-time job and I had all this kind of stuff that I do, and I'd work at a pizza place or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. They couldn't do that. So, like, you in the off season can't make any money. And if you're coming from a family who doesn't have much, can't provide for you, and that's kind of, they're trying to get you into college so that you potentially can have a career in the NFL, whatever that may be, like, what do? You can't work. Because heaven forbid somebody hire you because, hey, we'd really like the star wide receiver to be a waiter at our restaurant because that would be kind of cool. No, you can't even do that. And so it's absolutely ridiculous what they were keeping them from doing.
Mind you, like, their schedule is just so hectic because, like, when you're a college player, you're not just like, when it's the off season, you're still going. You're still
doing stuff.
You're still doing stuff. You're still in training. You're still doing these events. And in college, like, hey, you're required to. So there's very few places you can even work to begin with. And from what I've even heard in the past is like they were even limited on what jobs they can do if they started working for the school itself.
Right.
So it's like, what are you able to do?
Yeah.
Like, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, like, even after that decision came through, the NCAA didn't even put any policies for to guide NIL
Right.
in place until 2 years later, last year, and it was late last year when they started putting policies in. It wasn't like the beginning of last year when they put the policies into place. And so the reason why Tennessee in particular is completely upset, and mind you, it's the state of Tennessee, it's not University of Tennessee that launched this lawsuit. And that does make a difference. That they're representing every school that's in Tennessee, and same with Virginia. They're representing every school in Virginia. I'm surprised, honestly, Florida didn't join the lawsuit, considering the fact that two Florida universities got flagged with 2 NIL violations.
Right.
And the thing is, the NCAA, what they're doing is they're looking at Tennessee's got the biggest one. The University of Tennessee's got the biggest one for the supposed NIL deal with Nico Maliava, where he's just like, oh yeah, they're paying him $8 million. It's like that's just speculation. I haven't seen anything confirmed about that, but that is the consistent number that's been floating around. And it wouldn't surprise me if they did pay him that. Tennessee has the wealthiest NIL collective in the country, which I didn't know that until this past week when everything started getting crazy. But
well, just talk to Ohio State. We'll tell you how to spend it.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Clearly, you guys know how to spend it.
Or
without,
Ole Miss, like the two very good at that.
Right.
I don't know if Ole Miss knows how to spend it.
We need to give Lane Kiffin a few tips.
Yeah. Hey, buddy, you just realize when they say 10, they don't mean 12.
Right.
You got 10 million. That means you don't have 12 million or 15 million. Again, that's all supposed, but it's still funny if that's the case. You're trying to strong arm your NIL collective. But it's one of those things like the biggest thing is like Nico signed on, did all this stuff before these policies went into effect, and the NCAA is now trying to retroactively go after schools and put them under the same policy banner. You can't do that.
Well, especially considering that Tennessee made their own laws.
Yeah.
Like
Tennessee already has its own laws.
Tennessee, when all of this came out, there were some states who said, let's get ahead of this and let's go ahead and put laws in place for this NIL since the NCAA is not doing anything.
Yeah.
And Tennessee did that. And so, again, what it comes down to is the NCAA can't override a state's laws or a state's rules.
State or federal
or
law.
federal law. So, that's where we're running in. The NCAA has no legal bounds here. But they're trying to because they want to maintain.
They want to retain the stronghold
every bit of stronghold.
The crazy thing is like NCAA, this isn't something new. They've been dealing with NIL related things for years now, decades, and I feel like every single time that kind of came up to their plate, they just kind of push it off, and so now they could no longer. And where teams like or schools like Tennessee, University of Tennessee, and everything, they're like, hey, fine, like. You gave us a very loose kind of rule set and very broad. We're just going to follow your exact rules.
Yeah. We're going to follow our state laws because that's more specific.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, they still filed the guidelines either way.
Yeah.
But now it's like, okay, cool. 2 years later, let's go back. And, hey, you actually did something that we don't agree. Cool. Well, that doesn't matter because you set that rule in 2022. Yeah. We did this in 2021 when it was still legal.
Right. I mean, if rules are retroactive, then I feel like there's some people that deserve some Heisman trophies back and things like
Reggie
that.
Bush.
That's what I was about to say. Right. Like I feel like he deserves it back if we're gonna be we're gonna play that game. And of course you won't ever see them do that because why would they?
That would mean that they're wrong then. They made a mistake.
Yeah. And so it's just one of those things like I think with the NIL stuff, especially like are we going to see like the NCAA kind of come to a head this year of like, are they actually going to be gone? Are they going to just have a majorly diminished responsibility and a role in collegiate sports? What is it going to look like? Because it's not just going to affect football.
No, and that's I think obviously we're a college football podcast. We talk football. We like football. But the NCAA is not just football, and that's a lot of the when you start looking back for the combining or the bringing on of teams. So, we're really excited in football to have USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington coming into the Big Ten because that's awesome. Like football wise, it's going to be so much fun to watch, Ohio State and USC at some point in the Rose Bowl. Like, it's going to be fun. We were talking in our text this coming year, we could see Ohio State and Oregon potentially play 3 times.
Yeah.
They play in the regular season, they play in the Big Ten championship, and then they play in the playoffs. It's very possible. That is fun.
Sure.
However, the softball teams, the women's softball teams now are under that same umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
If there's, I don't know, fencing, whatever, they're under that same umbrella.
Yeah.
They're not getting the plane rides. They're not getting as much as the football guys are. So it's very.
I mean, it's true though. But I mean, everyone knows the most money colleges get is through college football.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like regardless of anything else. Like I know basketball has kind of been taking more of an uptick for a lot of universities.
Sure.
Even for both men and women's basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say volleyball, softball, those are all sports that are getting now more recognition, more.
The baseball especially.
Yeah,
That one's really growing a lot.
And I think NCAA just wants to stay away from the verbiage of like, hey, like pay for play type thing. When it's just like,
right.
That's exactly what we're doing though. Like, there's no other way to spin it.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
it is, but that's. And there's a lot of liberties been taken with NIL. I mean, I think really looking back on it, I think a lot of it goes back to, you look at the what was it? I didn't play many video games, but the NCAA
14.
Whatever it was.
Well, yeah, like the NCAA football game.
I always want to
Yeah.
say Madden, and I know that was
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
I know, but I'm just saying.
Totally
so like
wrong.
you look at that, and you look at how much they were making off of the likeness of these kids, and they weren't putting the names on. I don't think.
No,
they
weren't
weren't putting the. So
it
they
had to be like, for example, NCAA 14 was Denard Robinson.
Right.
Like, he was the cover athlete, but when you played the game, it was like, hey, quarterback number, like.
Yeah, this is
they had
Renard
the number.
Robinson.
Yeah.
They had the numbers. They didn't have
Right.
the
Yeah, they
names.
didn't even have names. They just had numbers.
But
So
they,
it was like, hey, number 2.
but it was still their likeness, and they were
Yes,
still
100%.
doing.
You can
And
recognize
so
them.
you look at that kind of stuff, and you go, "That was just wrong with how much money they were making." But yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. And I guess the question then becomes to me, how do you, with NIL, how do you get away from pay for play to what name, image, and likeness really was, or do you just say, you know what, we're just going to have a salary cap. We're just going to
Do what the pros do.
do what the pros do, and you're going to have a salary cap. But then even with that, does football then break away from college athletics to where the NCAA now is being able to cover, hey, you know what, NCAA, you take care of all the other sports. You take care of the baseball and the basketball and everything that kind of follows under that, and football's going to be its own thing.
I don't think they would need to separate it so much. And I think just college football just in general is going to get the most attention, again, because they make the most money.
Yep.
That's what most people, when you think of like, hey, what schools does your sports, what sports does your school play? People are like, oh yeah, football is always the first or second one mentioned, depending on what school you go to. If you go to Kentucky, it's probably going to be basketball. And then depending on what time of year, first half of the fall, you're like, oh yeah, football, we do. And then second half, you're like, oh, we completely forget about that.
Right.
Well, Kentucky fans right now don't like either. So
That's fair enough.
yeah.
But it's just one of those things where, like, I feel like that's the only way the NCAA is going to be able to kind of save themselves if they kind of try to introduce salary cap kind of things with the conferences. And even with that, I feel like the conferences themselves are eventually going to become 2, 3 main ones, like major ones. And we're not going to see, like, obviously the Pac-12 is basically non-existent.
Right.
It just doesn't exist anymore. But conferences like the ACC are just going to be like, hey, cool, you're still a Power 5, Power 4 conference, but you don't have the budget for SEC, for the Big Ten.
Right.
You're there, but not there.
I mean, you're really seeing it start to kind of break off into those two. But again, like what do we do? Like, even if you talk about salary cap, a James Madison is not gonna.
The Dukes, man,
They're not gonna have the money
Yeah.
to play on the same playing field as an Ohio State or
No.
an Alabama or
And
Oregon.
Does the salary cap need to just follow the conference? Like, is it not based on the school anymore? Is it actually based on the conference at that point?
Like I feel like the conference would be like the best idea. The same way like how you get a Division II team to be a Division I.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to pay kind of a premium. Like, hey, I think it's like a $5 million
$5 million.
like buy-in, and then it's like you increase scholarships like 20 per year, $10 million like additional. So it's like if they do something like that for the conference, mind you, just like to go for Division II to be Division I, be a school that actually has been winning. Then you get the invite, just like how it's always been. You get an invite to the conference when your team has been successful.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if they do that kind of realm, it's a legitimate shot.
Yeah, and I could see like the media rights deals and stuff like that kind of playing into how much NIL gets for each conference.
Yeah.
So it's not really as based on the collectives. Like the NFL's not based, like NFL teams are not based on how much people donate to the team. It's based on media rights. It's based on the deals that they make with Fox and ESPN and the NFL
as a
network,
whole,
whatever.
it's not even the individual teams.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's so like the NCAA, you can't trust them. You can't trust them to break all that money up evenly because they don't even know how to write policies that are in line with the law.
just give them 3. They'll set the rules and then let
Give 'em
them
3
actually give you
years.
the rules 3 years later. Be
Okay.
like,
Right.
hey, you didn't know because we didn't give it to you, but here's the rules that you actually messed up on.
Yeah. Here's what you have to worry about, and just so you know, we're fining you all that money back.
It's I feel like it's like filing taxes.
Yeah.
You don't know what you did wrong until after you get
Yeah.
like, hey, you actually owe this money.
Yeah. So the NCAA, the new
Like,
IRS.
so you're gonna like tell me where I got wrong? Nope.
Nope. You got to figure that out.
And what happens if I'm wrong? You go to jail.
Yeah.
You
Go to
get banned.
jail.
Right.
And so I think like a governance, if you wanted to do it that way, like a CFB governance board kind of thing would be needed, and then you could do it per sport. But I think per conference also makes sense because of the fact that it's less money floating around all at once in one big bundle.
Right.
And then on top of that, the conferences that do get the more the most traction, like from a visual perspective, like a Power 5 conference is always gonna. Are we gonna say Power 4 now? I don't.
Are we
We're
do we have to change?
Power 2.
Yeah, I know.
We have to change our podcast.
Yeah, I know. Oh goodness. Who's to say that that's what it's about? You know.
Yeah.
Nah, true. Never mind.
But it's one of those things. Like I think, I mean, you got like the SEC and the Big Ten. They have the biggest media rights deals with ESPN. That's one of the reasons why the ACC is, why FSU is mad at the ACC. And they have a legitimate case. I was actually listening to somebody a lawyer talk about their case earlier, and it's pretty bad. ACC really did some nasty stuff.
Did they?
Yeah, about 10 years ago.
Not surprised.
Yeah, and some nepotism related things, which is very interesting.
I mean, if Florida schools are included, you can't be surprised.
Well, it's ACC that did this.
I mean, the state of Florida is still included in the ACC.
I get it, but it's But anyways, it's because of that, like the SEC and the Big Ten would have a bigger, albeit it might not need to be as large of a, like it doesn't need to be that drastic of a difference for their salary cap, but they at least, if the salary cap is $5 million per team per year or whatever it is, which I think is completely reasonable, and $5 million per team per year or whatever, and that might even be too much. Like the SEC and the Big Ten teams are getting $6 or $7 million, and ACC is getting $5 million.
I mean, not too long ago, before the past few years, I feel like every single conference, in terms of like the deals that they had with anybody that was basically like buying into them, were a lot more even grounds.
Yeah.
Like, and now, as you were saying, like the changes between SEC and ACC, just on their what they're getting in terms for publishing and everything like that, totally different now. The scale's a big different. But going to the conference, though, say an SEC team where like Tennessee, as you mentioned earlier, has one of the biggest, basically, bank accounts that they're able to throw around. Ohio State has been throwing it around.
Yeah.
But like in the SEC alone, where like you have Tennessee and their budget, and you have another SEC team like Vanderbilt. Some people never heard of them having a football team.
Yeah.
Like you pass by Vanderbilt, you don't even see the stadium half the time.
No, you just see a construction zone.
Yeah, it's like you don't
They're
know if
known
it's
for
part of
their
Nashville
construction
itself or Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Like it goes to show where like, hey, if they have a budget of $7 million, Tennessee is $7 million, it kind of within the conference itself, it kind of makes it a more even competition. It just basically goes more like, hey, is the quality of player the quality of the coach itself?
Yeah. When it affects who they're able to recruit.
Yeah.
To a degree. The thing is, what's not going to change is what states allocate for funding for like facilities and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, no,
That's not
that's
gonna change.
it's totally separate.
Like,
yeah.
there's a reason why Tennessee tends to get like significantly better recruits than Vanderbilt, and it's
Yeah.
not just because of the fact that Vanderbilt has such a high scholastic standard.
Yeah. Why people
I
go
mean-
to Texas A&M for a year and then leave.
Yeah, it's literally just because Tennessee's facilities are just that much better. There is an academic reason too. It's just, but it's not as heavy as people make it out to be. A lot of athletes are pretty stinking smart, so like it's not,
I mean, you have to be for how much they know both,
Yeah.
not even academic ways, but just the mental game that comes into
you have to know the
any
strategy
sports.
of the game that you're playing. Like there is
It's
a
not
lot
so
of
simple.
smarts that there are a lot of smarts that play into that, and so I think a salary cap might make sense. I think that might be one of the ways to do it.
Yeah.
Because again, like letting it run, unbridled, period, is just not smart.
No, it's a lot of fun watching Ohio State pull in all these guys.
Sure.
Of course, you've been enjoying it.
But you look at it and you go, you can't sustain this.
No.
It's not sustainable. And I mean, unfortunately.
And I mean, honestly, later this year, the NCAA could be like, you know what? If your coach's last name is Day, we won't let you do any kind of recruiting with NIL.
Right.
And then you're going to be retroactively in violation of their rules, because that's how they set up their entire organization.
And then we're going to get a TRO.
Then you're going to have to get a TRO. And they're only going to do it just because of the fact that you probably beat Michigan or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, miracles do happen.
I mean,
do.
This year, you guys better.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. We better.
We talked about this. If you guys are not at least vying for a national championship, there's going to be an issue.
It's national championship or days gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
So, but I mean, arguably, I think, change is obviously on the horizon. It's just how much of it's going to be fixed by like this advisory board that the SEC and the Big Ten have created.
Or are they just going to advise them to get out?
That is true.
No, I mean, it kind of goes to say though, because where Luke, you kind of mentioned earlier too, like it's not even just the recruiting part, but the transfer portal. Like, what's the cap? Is the salary cap going to be part of the same thing? Two different things?
Yeah.
Like, how's that going to go?
And I think that easily brings us into our next topic, which is the transfer portal. Like the portal is just nuts, and some of the rules for it make sense, and then other rules are dumb as all get out.
They're dumbest. I'll get out.
Had to censor myself there.
Right.
But it's just like I mean, who thought it was a good idea to have a transfer portal open right at the end of the regular season before all the bowl games happen? That doesn't make any sense.
Like, I feel like it still kind of confuses me how there's two transfer, basically, like, kind of
Transfer windows?
Windows. That part still confuses me. Because I feel like one should be right after the bowl. I feel like a month of that's kind of
after the Natty.
Yeah, I feel like that one makes sense.
Sure.
But then they have one that basically a couple months later, just before, just summer training and everything. Where it's just like, I'm still confused because like the new recruits are coming in. But
Right. I mean, I can kind of I understand. Like, I think again, the transfer portal should not be at the end of the regular season. Transfer portal. I can't say that.
trouble.
Transfer
My goodness.
portal should open.
Ohio State is not known for the academics.
No, but we win unless it's against Michigan or Missouri. But I said we win unless we're against.
It's an
Michigan
M
or
team.
Yeah.
but like
Basically.
it should be opened after the Natty. I mean, day after the Natty.
Sure.
Yeah.
Open it up, let players go. I can understand having one in the spring because you've had guys come in.
After spring practice.
You've kind of like you have some guys who maybe thought that they were going to do better and they were going to maybe have a starter or a backup role, and then they realize, okay, I'm a little bit further down here and I'm not going to play this year.
Yeah.
And so then you kind of allow them to go, okay, let me find a better situation for myself. So I can get that. I can even get opening the portal for, like
the
a
recent
team
firing.
Yeah,
or,
a coach retires or a coach takes it. Like, I can understand that because a lot of these guys go and they want to play for, Nick Saban. They wanted to play for Nick Saban because Nick Saban is arguably the greatest of all times. Yeah. And then he leaves, and it's like, well, hold on. Like, this is why I came here. They 100%.
The paycheck is nice, but
right.
I wanted him to coach me.
Well, but then you go, okay, maybe, I really wanted to be coached by Nick Saban, but you know what? Dion was my second choice.
Yeah.
Or James Franklin at Penn State whoever was my second choice. Well, yeah, James Franklin, whatever coach it was, Luke Fickle at Wisconsin. I don't know. Somebody was their second choice, and they go, well, if Nick Saban's leaving, and you're bringing in somebody else, well, that guy wasn't my choice. So I even get allowing them the time to go somewhere else.
Yep.
But then you've got this and I think this year with Saban leaving, and again, the last time we talked about the coaching carousel. DeBoer goes, and this guy goes, and this guy goes. And so you just have all these scattered portals being open. I don't think we're going to see that in the future as much. I think we'll see one team, two teams, maybe that happens.
This particular offseason was just different.
It was crazy.
It's very weird.
It was a very weird offseason. So I don't think you're going to see that extreme.
It'll be a while.
It'll happen, yes. But something has to happen with the portal. It has to change in some way. And I think the biggest change that needs to happen is they just need to move that first window, that first opening after the bowl.
Yeah.
Because bowl season kind of was not as fun.
Boring.
Well, Well, it de-incentivizes kids to play.
Mm-hmm.
I still would play for the Pop-Tart Bowl, personally.
I know you would have. Now, granted, you realize you can't eat the Pop-Tart.
I was so disappointed. I felt lied to. I wasn't even part of it. I didn't even go, but I felt lied to.
Yeah, that was some false advertisement there. Pop-Tart.
And then they had a strawberry. Who wants strawberry? It's brown sugar.
Brown sugar all day long. Comment. What's your favorite Pop-Tart?
Yeah, what's your favorite Pop-Tart? Because that's important. Hey, speaking of portals, that Pop-Tart went into a portal. He came out, and he's not a human. Anywho, but
just like all the Alabama recruits, they felt lied to. Like, hey, we got to go.
Yeah. Yep. Like I get players like seniors and guys that are clearly going to go into the draft. I get them opting out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't understand why it's okay to incentivize kids leaving before their team plays their final game of the year.
Yeah.
If they're just going to go play somewhere else. It's like, fine, that's fine. You want to go play somewhere else? Perfectly fine. Just wait until after the bowl game.
Right.
You can still you owe it to your team to play.
Not only that, it's like if you get able to make it to a bowl game, there's a good amount of teams that they're not good, but there's a decent amount of teams that actually just don't ever get to play in a bowl or haven't played in a bowl game in a while.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So to get to play in any bowl almost is like, yo, this is what you worked for all season for. Mm-hmm. With your team, you individually as a player, especially if you're one of the star players, like this is what you played for.
Yeah. When I think the other thing and this is just going to have to be a culture shift, is if you want the kids, and I was listening to somebody talk about this a couple weeks ago, if you want the kids to take their team seriously, take the bowl game seriously, things like that, the other thing that has to happen is coaches cannot leave their team until after the bowl games.
Yeah.
Period. Mm-hmm. Like this entire, the reason why James Madison ended up falling off hard, their entire coaching staff got swapped around before their bowl game.
They went to Indiana literally within a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that's unacceptable. Props to you. Great that you went to Indiana. Great that you got you got to step up in your job.
Right.
Wait until the end of the season.
I would have loved for the most part. James Madison actually did pretty well in their bowl game. I would have loved to see.
Yeah, they did
the actual
considering.
Team.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's the thing is it wasn't the coaching staff is still part of the team, and that's
1,000%.
They're part arguably makes the team as good as what they are.
Yeah.
And I mean it's the same thing with Duke and Elko. I get it. Texas A&M was leaderless.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have backup assistant coaches and stuff like that. You have DCs and OCs and stuff like that. Just let them promote them from within till the end of the season, and then at that point, move on.
Right.
Honestly, that's what Auburn did last year, right? They not this past year, but the year before in 2022, they did it with Cadillac.
Yeah,
Williams.
which I'm still kind of frustrated they didn't actually have him as a head coach. I still would have loved to see him.
Yeah.
Yep.
But his time as an interim head coach was a lot of fun to watch.
Oh,
because
definitely.
He just brought a lot of.
You saw the
He
excitement, the
coached
energy.
like a player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and that's, I mean,
Which is fun.
which
Yeah.
is fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And so I think getting it to where like coaches stop treating it too like if kids, we can't really fault a kid for treating it like strictly a business decision if that's all their coaches also do.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's no loyalty from any coach, and that's one of the reasons why people can say Nick Saban is the GOAT. He didn't just transfer to somewhere else and go
Right.
coach somewhere else. He could have made another program great for a little while longer.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "No, I'm done. You know what? Alabama is who I am. Like that I'm even
That's
though
how I'm ending.
that's like I get it. I was associated with other teams before I went to Alabama, but since like becoming basically the GOAT at Alabama,
This
it makes
was the
no
last
sense.
20 years I've
Yeah,
been
Right.
here.
it makes absolutely no sense for me to go somewhere else, even if I get paid even more or double what I'm getting paid right
which
now.
would be worth it.
He would, but
Mhm.
he's like, I understand how legacies work, and that's probably one of the things that has saved Alabama some embarrassment
yeah.
in how they've lost in the portal and stuff like that. Because again, DeBoer is an awesome coach. I think he's
Yep.
going to do great there. But
If he's given the opportunity
if
to
he's given the opportunity,
grow into his
to.
own.
Yep. And but it's just one of those things like coaches most of the time just don't show the same. They ask for tons of loyalty from their
Mhm.
players and show zero of it to their school.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons why I've been really excited to hear from hear Rodney Garner, the defensive line coach for Tennessee. He's being hounded and scouted right now by Auburn, which is his alma mater, and he's like, "Nah, I kind of want to just retire at Tennessee."
Yeah.
He likes where he's at.
When it's where he's making his biggest impact. He's setting records there. He's
Tennessee definitely needs him.
well, Tennessee needs. He's the bright spot on their defense.
Yeah.
100%. He has made their defensive line incredibly relevant. And for the past 2-3 years, he's made.
I think he's been there since 2020 or 2021.
2021.
Yeah.
He came in with Heupel.
Yeah.
And so it's like he's also there because his kids are enrolled at Tennessee.
Yeah.
So it's like he's building loyalty with the staff. He's building loyalty with these kids, and he's teaching them loyalty. And I think more coaches should do. And I know coaches. There are coaches that do it that don't get all the.
Yeah.
Dan Lanning's one of them. He's doing it. Out in
I
Oregon.
love what he did. He
Sarkisian.
immediately spoke.
Sarkisian,
Both
there
of them
you go.
spoke
Yeah.
right away.
And those things are
Some
great.
players too. Fafita, your
Mhm.
favorite player.
Fafita.
Yeah.
Like he's like, stay in Arizona. Lost my head coach, but hey, it's
Yeah,
fine.
and so it's like there's stuff that's happening, but it's just like unfortunately those reports are now too far in between. It should
Right.
that should be the norm, not the exception to the rule.
Yes.
No,
1000%.
and I mean the other side of, and this kind of goes off topic a little bit. You can't expect bowl games to mean something when there's as many bowl games as there are.
That's also true.
When you go back and you look, 20, 30 years ago, there were 20 bowl games. Going
Yeah.
to a bowl game was
An
a
achievement,
milestone,
yeah.
an achievement, and now you've got teams that are 5 and 7 going to a bowl game,
Yeah.
Like,
or maybe it was 6 and 7. I don't
no,
remember.
it was
It was 5
Minnesota
and
5 and 7.
7.
They
Yeah,
won
5
and
and
became
7.
6 and 7.
and became so.
Yeah.
You get this and you look at it. Bowl game. I mean, this is becoming a business. Not that it already wasn't.
Yeah.
It's becoming a business. They're making business decisions. There's less. What did we call it? I mean, you call it. There's less like team. This isn't my
Yeah.
team. This is who I work for.
Yeah.
And so, can that change? I think so.
Yeah.
We'll just have to see.
I mean, again,
Put in your NIL contract. The incentive, if you play in the bowl, you can receive the rest of your paycheck.
yeah, and the thing is, I think there's some rules about that. They
Mhm.
can't do that. There's some
can't do it.
incentivization they're not allowed to
Yeah.
do. But it's like but what they could do if they're going to act like employers, there's like employers have investing programs and stuff like that. Like
Mhm.
if you want these particular investment accounts, aka part of your NIL deal or whatever, that could be in a completely different thing than
Yeah.
just straight up cash or
Mhm.
whatever it is. If you want it to be fully vested, you have to stay here for X amount of years.
See, the thing is, though, too, it would protect both the player and the school, though.
True.
Because as of right now, the people who actually can have the most control, the most power, is the players themselves. they can literally ask for their NIL deal. Hey, can I have $300,000, $400,000 up front before they even sign?
Well, no, they can't.
Not
You
before
can't do
they
that.
sign.
Well,
That's one of the new rules that NCAA passed.
Okay, before the new rule, they could do that and be like, hey, cool, Tennessee gave me $400,000.
Sure.
Ohio State, what you gonna give me? Can I give $2 million? Okay, here you go.
See,
Come back to Tennessee. I'm like, I got my $2 million.
And that's one of the reasons why Tennessee's fighting it, is because that's a dumb rule.
Yeah.
Like it's actually a policy that I was talking to a couple of different people on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, and there's one guy that was just like, I just don't understand why anybody would would think that there's an issue with with this NIL policy. Like, it just makes a ton of sense. Like, I was like, hold on. I was like, so I want you to go and quit your current job, go to another job, apply to it, go and accept the job, never talk about pay until after you sign on for that job, and go, hey, so what am I getting paid?
No one.
No one does that. And that's what
usually you get the offer, and then you're like, hey, should I leave my job or should I stay?
There's negotiation that happens. You're allowed to negotiate. And the NCAA didn't want these kids to negotiate anything. And so it's just like, which is just completely wrong. And like, so there's no incentives allowed at all before they sign on the dotted line now, which is really dumb. Like, and so it's just one of those things, like the entire thing, like the way that the NCAA, and it again goes back to the NIL stuff, like, and it's just like, like if you want these kids especially to become successful with what what they're doing, and you want to teach them loyalty, you want to teach them things, and also teach them skills that they can take with them through the rest of their life. Because how many kids get out of high school or get out of college and they're destitute, they've burned through money or whatever it was, or they get into college or get into the pros, and then after they get out of the pros, they're then destitute again because they, and I know that there are new programs and stuff like that that are supposed to help with the literacy and stuff like that, but one of the ways that you can help build that is by having proper programs in place for NIL, but then teaching them that loyalty, teaching them how to be not just a great teammate, but also just be a phenomenal person. Just be a good person, be a good negotiator for yourself, be a good advocate for yourself. So when they're in the job world, they're not getting screwed over by another company, right. And all those different skills and skill sets that just aren't properly taught, because it's more important for them to be acing all their athletic training. Right. And it's just like, at the end of the day, that is only going to carry them for 10 or 15 years of their life, maybe 20. But
yeah, I mean, depending on how well they do.
Depending on how good you are, yeah.
But I mean, it also comes to the fact that there's a couple players who are trying to join or get into college football a year or two before.
True.
Like their recent recruit, Colin Hurley, he's 16 years old, just started basically enrolled with LSU. His 16 years old. He just turned 16 years old this past year, like late in the year. Or actually, late in the year. So he finished high school 2 years sooner, and he has an NIL deal he's worth NIL evaluations just over $100,000, and he's 16 years old. Mm-hmm. What are you gonna do with that kind of money? And like, if he's just doing it for the cash flow, you could very well easily get burnt out. Who knows if you're gonna actually be able to finish college, because like, it's already hard enough to get that money at 18, 19, but 16 years old, like, right. Dude, your mind's not even close to being developed. Yet. Like, not barely starting.
Yeah.
Like,
and just like finding ways to like, help these kids, get what they're worth, be able to advocate for themselves, but at the same time also understand how to handle that kind of money, how to handle there's the entire change of like the mentality and the emotional like side of it. Like, you go from being a big fish in a little pond to being now a medium-sized fish in a giant ocean. Right. When you're in high school and you're being recruited by an Ohio State or a Bama or a Georgia or whatever, you're probably the best athlete in literally a 200-mile radius. And
then you get to the team, and you're the best athlete in
your
the 3-foot radius around you.
In your dorm room,
and that's at best.
Yeah. And so it's just like it's one of those things, like how to prepare these kids to where they're not having mental breakdowns out of college into going into pros. I mean, that's one of the things that happened, I think, personally, I think that's one of the things that happened with Stetson Bennett.
Yeah, I mean, by no means is this like a target towards like any of the athletes or anything
No.
like that. It's just the way I feel like we can all agree where we genuinely believe like the NCAA or just colleges in general should take more responsibility in just helping basically these student athletes be on the correct path, be on the right path, and essentially just either during their play and especially after that, they're well adjusted, not just student athletes, but just people in general.
Yeah.
Like
There's too much money in collegiate sports to not have something set aside for training and development of these athletes.
Yeah.
Right.
In any sport. Like, you cannot persuade me that it's going to cost you a third of what you're making, what you're making in from ESPN and stuff. It's not going to cost anywhere close to that. And especially since I know a lot of banks offer like for financial, training and whatnot.
Financial
and
literacy.
Education. A lot of them offer it for free. Because they want, a lot of banks actually do want people, they don't want necessarily people in debt.
They want you to be able to pay it off. That's how they
right.
get money.
Yeah, exactly.
There are probably, there's the Dave Ramsey people out there that are probably like, no, banks want you in debt.
Some do.
Yeah,
Their credit card.
Well, they want you in
some.
debt, but they want you paying back the debt.
True.
You're no good to them if you don't pay it back.
Exactly. Well, and the other thing is, like, bankers don't want that. There's the autonomous, like bank, the ethereal bank, the corporate bank might want that because it's better for their bottom line. But the individual local banker at your bank wants you not to cry when you see your bank account.
Hey, I've seen Yes Man. I've seen that movie. When
Yeah.
he started agreeing to everybody's asking for business, what do you call it? Business cards. What? They said like 80% of the.
Yes. Just remember that is Hollywood.
Right.
This very well could be too. A
Isn't.
lot of money's involved. It's a lot of stories.
That unfortunately isn't how it works.
No, but I'm just saying, like, it just if you're able to teach that though, there's
Exactly.
a possibility of that kind of going on.
Yeah.
Like.
So I think if you guys have any ideas of like what NIL needs to do, what the transfer portal needs to do, comment below, share this video, stuff like that. Subscribe.
Thoughts and opinions.
Tell us how we're wrong, which is perfectly fine.
Or how much Ohio State's been spending.
or guess how much I
See if they're gonna buy their natty.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh, you just silent now, huh?
Listen, if we win a natty, I will be happy.
I hope so.
it's at least more ethical to buy a natty than to steal a natty.
That's true.
That's true. It's
Yeah. I'll give you that.
I'm not talking about any particular team.
technically we're not really even buying it. They still have to play on the field.
They do have to play it on the field.
That's true.
It's really going to boil down to coaching, and I think
All day.
It's really exactly. It's just one of those things. Like, I think if O'Brien goes to Boston College, like it's currently being speculated, it's honestly kind of a low blow because he just went to Ohio State.
Yeah, I get it.
But you guys
Brian
can
Hartline though. Like I feel like waiting the wings. Like
Very
possibly
possible.
take
We'll see.
over.
I mean, he's never really play called, so that's the
He's
only.
just developed.
I would
He's
rather.
very good at developing.
He's very good at developing. He's really good at recruiting. I would rather get somebody in there who's
Oh,
a little more
more comfortable.
play calling.
Mhm.
But
Again,
Either way.
I don't think it's like going to cause a major step back for Ohio State.
No.
But it's just another shift.
No, because I mean they got most of
That's
their players before he even joined on.
mhm.
True. The
Yeah.
only one that
saying
is saying that may, if he doesn't like what he sees, he may transfer out.
because he liked Bill O'Brien.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Bill
It-
O'Brien
He
recruited
could
him.
he could go to Boston College.
I mean, sure, make Boston College relevant again.
And when was
been
the
a
last
while.
time they were relevant?
I don't know. Some
I'll say like Matt Ryan. That's it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking further back, like
yeah.
Flutie.
Oh man.
Back in the day, that was
Way
what,
back
like
when.
1980.
Like 84, I think.
84.
The year I was born.
Oh,
Jeez.
sheesh.
You guys were.
He had hair back then.
I don't think I did when I was born.
So it doesn't matter. 1984, 2024. Luke still didn't have hair.
Still no hair.
Yeah, you came into this world without hair. You'll leave this world without hair.
Hopefully not soon.
No.
No. We're not saying
We're
that.
not saying that. That's interesting. I wonder what else happened in 1984. There's that book.
That's
It's a good book.
It didn't come out in 1984. Anyways, thanks for joining tonight's Tailgate. Like, follow, and comment below. Come back. Next week, grab a drink and join us again.